I really struggled with porn coming out of my marriage. Like I was hooked pretty deep. And again, that's where the depression ensued. And that also comes from, you know, you feel so guilty when you look at porn, right? It's nobody feels good about themselves when they're done. There's a lot of physiological and scientific, you know, knowledge to back that. But for me, it really started to change where I'm like, okay, like what kind of a human being do I want to be? You know, I want to have a beautiful family. I want to have a beautiful wife. Do I want to have the conversation with her that, you know, I'm hooked on this horrible addiction that really just defames women. So again, tying yourself to the best version of yourself is a great way of doing that. So overcoming those addictions anyway, like I'm like in 1 year from now, I'm not smoking. For me, again, I wrote down 185 pounds, under 10% body fat, right? I weighed in at 189 the other day. I was pretty excited about that. Awesome. So, and again, right, I do want to get into the porn addiction thing too, because that's something very close to my heart that I want to help as many people get out of, because when you do come out of that, it's incredible what happens. So I shared with you also one of my favorite quotes from a book from Napoleon Hill, where he mentions, if man would spend half as much time focused on his actual passion that he does on how much time he focuses on sex, humankind would not know poverty. And that is like, wow. Right. So moving out of that, right. So I was very hooked. It was a very dark time of my life, but moving out of that, I learned through a life coach of mine, actually, that, you know, if you can actually harness the power, God has given men this incredible energy, let's call it vault, that if you just keep that energy in there for literally 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to start noticing change in your energy levels, your output in life. So, and if you cannot masturbate or orgasm for at least 90 days, you will feel superhuman, which is why I love. I'm assuming that's why you named your podcast that.
What 100%. I mean, there's a handful of reasons, and I'm so glad that this is where we went, because we haven't talked a lot about this on this podcast. I mean, we're 30 plus episodes in, and this 100% is something that I did experience. And just circling back to how God created us. So speaking to the Christian men out there, like, if you are a believer and you believe that God created the world, but then created man and woman in his likeness. So think about that. The greatest creation in the world, or the greatest creation in the universe, is the world that we're currently living in. So that means that the God that created you created the earth. And if he created you in your likeness, he gave you that same creative power and that same creative juice. I'm gonna, for lack of a better word there. And totally. And when we talk about creation, I think the greatest creation that humans can do together is the creation of another human. That's one way to use our creative force. But totally. if we're not focus on creating humans, we still have that creative juice in our body. What can we use that for? Well, if you're watching porn, masturbating every single day, realizing that every single time you masturbate, you're releasing your creative energy. If you're able to harness that, like you said, for 60, 90 days, 120 days, God, go years, all that creative energy and power is going to live inside of you. And if you can direct it on creating something like a podcast, on creating content, on creating coaching programs, on creating businesses, whatever God has placed on your heart to create, and you give it all, dude, it opens up this limitless potential. There's definitely an underlying reason behind the Superhuman Life podcast title.
Totally. And I kind of want to unpack that too. And for those of you who are listening who maybe aren't Christian, maybe have grown up in this idea, the problem is I believe that sex was created first and foremost for creation, as you mentioned, right? To reproduce. And the pleasure is a great side product. The world has completely twisted those two things around. Now, sex is about pleasure. It's about It's about, notches in a belt. It's about how many girls or guys have you slept with. And then if somebody gets pregnant, it's like, oh, what a horrible thing to happen. It's like, well, yeah, because you're supposed to wait for the right person, have sex with that one person, because it is an exchange of energies. It is a very, very deep connection. And you're supposed to have that with one person. So when you start to unpack that and understand, okay, like, save it for one person. Now we start to go into the scientific part. When a man releases, you are losing the energy equivalent of giving half a pint of blood. When I go give blood for them to bring to the hospital, you know what they tell me to do? Go sit down and eat some juice and cookies and don't leave for half an hour.
Yeah.
So you might have this big vision for your life, but if the one little hole is a porn addiction, no wonder you're not getting anything done, because nobody has to tell you, but you're going to go sit down on the couch and be like, why am I so tired? Why do I feel so guilty? Well, it's because of that. So again, and I found this in my life, right? Like, so my life coach told me, okay, we're going to do this. Like, you're going to do what they call NoFap for 90 days. You're going to find that day in your phone. You're going to write it in. And by the time you hit that day, your life is going to be transformed. And it is. Right. I'm not saying if you stop masturbating, all of a sudden you're going to get all this money, or the right person is going to come into your life, but you're going to start moving into your passion. You're going to start being able to move through life with such focus. And a big thing too, you are going to be a lot more confident, because let's be honest, when you're looking at porn, you feel like, for lack of a better term, shit. Like, it's hard to look somebody in the eyes. It's hard to shake somebody's hand. Right. And it's just, we need to start. And I can't stand, like, even amongst Christian circles, like the way we talk about women sometimes, it's like, guys, like, they are such incredibly beautiful creatures that were put here on this earth to be your life partner. Like, let's start treating them with respect and see how we can change the world that way. Right. You have that with the whole Me Too movement as well. Like, and I say this because I had a woman in my life that I didn't treat well enough. Right. Like, I was addicted before my marriage and then out of my marriage, but those psychological connections you make in your mind to when you're fantasizing about another woman, like, it takes a very long time to get rid of those. Right. I think NoFap really helps, because I can't remember the last time I looked at porn, and even hearing myself say that, I'm just like, thank you, God. Right. So it's just like, start seeing women as beautiful human beings that are there to be a life partner, as opposed to this object. Like, these pickup artists, I know I'm getting passionate because I actually get angry about this. Like, when you start talking about seducing, right? So you got these guys who don't know how to talk to women, and then they go to a dating coach that teaches them how to seduce. Okay, so now you're trying to trick a woman psychologically. Are you going to want to have to do that for the rest of your life? Here's the best piece of advice I've got from a dating book. Choose someone who chooses you, right? If you're going to move into your passion, into your purpose, chances are you're going to attract the right people into your life. And it's going to be a very organic experience where it's like, hey, we're on the same wavelength. Let's make this happen. Not like, what's the first two things I should say to this really hot girl at the bar so I can try sleep with her? And then you're going to want to have to live the rest of your life trying to trick her into liking you. That sounds like a lot of like horrible work to me. So again, I really believe that we have to start viewing relationships and women differently. And in doing that and in moving forward, I think, again, it circles all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. It starts with the individual. It's a very slow process, but once we get that first pebble rolling from the top of the mountain, the avalanche is going to come, and it's going to be a beautiful roar.
Yeah. And just to tie a bow on all that, you talked about the NoFap process and the journey and transformation that men can experience, and how you'll step into a higher level of confidence about yourself. And it just ties into a consistent theme that we've gone to a handful of times in this episode, that confidence is built by keeping the promises that you made to yourself. So if you make a true commitment, men, I'm calling you today. If you're hearing this episode and anything that Vince or myself has shared on this podcast has resonated with you, if you're hearing this and looking yourself in the mirror right now, and it's time to come to face with yourself and realize that if you're participating, if you're frequently viewing porn, masturbating, et cetera, once a day, once a week, once a month, whatever the case may be, wherever you're currently at, if you're ready to acknowledge and admit that habit, that participation is holding you back from truly stepping into your greatness, if you could commit to a 90-day process, just NoFap for 90 days and truly make the commitment, start with getting up at a designated time. Boom, check it off. Start with implementing a small little morning routine, a handful of things that you know that you can accomplish every single day, and then add that on top of making the true commitment. For 90 days, you will not view porn, masturbate. If you can make that commitment this week while you're hearing this, just do it for 90 days and then circle back to me and send me a message, email, reach out to Vince. And 3 months from now, and if your life is not changed, if it is not transformed, and you've truly committed to this, I don't know what we'll do, but we'll figure something out because maybe I misled you. But if you truly commit and you truly commit to the steps and what we're talking about here, I can 100% with certainty guarantee that not only will your life change, but you'll step into a higher level of confidence. You'll step into a greater purpose of calling for who you are, for who God created you to be. And ultimately, you can change your life and impact and create your own superhuman life, which is kind of ties to the theme of the show here. So